कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी यादों में बरसातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें। मन की गहरी झील में कूद जाती हैं कभी, सोच के दरिया के संग संग बहती जाती हैं कभी। चाहे शाम हो या हो रातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें।
Our guest today is a renowned diplomat and politician, but his heart lies in books and in writing. We are delighted to have on our program today Kunwar Natwar Singh, who has just come out with his autobiography, One Life is Not Enough. Welcome to the program, Mr. Singh. Now this is interesting because one life indeed is not enough to describe what all you've been through in your life.
That's true. I'm now 83, and if I'm fairly healthy for my age.
Touch wood.
So there is always something to tell. But I came to this title after a long deliberation. I at first thought of just passing by, then a double life, and then the autobiography of a known Indian. But I thought this was the best, and people have liked it.
That title would have been a takeoff on Nirad Babu's.
That's right. Yeah. No, I knew him quite well. Yeah.
And it was a very special relationship.
It was, yeah. But he's much older than me. But I mean, you had to put up with his idiosyncrasies, and he could be very garrulous. But at heart, he was a very decent person and a great scholar.
Not that you yourself were very enamored by his second book, Thy Hand, Great Anna. You were not very impressed by it, were you?
No, I think he had run out of steam, actually, and it couldn't match the earlier book, the autobiography, which is one of the classics of the 20th century. But I had a hand in having it published.
Oh, yeah. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did, because they all refused. They were 1,000 pages long. Then I spoke to Roy Jenkins, who was the Chancellor of Oxford University, and to the head of Chateau and Windus, his publishers, Graham Greene's nephew. I said, the least you can do is to publish this on his 90th birthday. And he did. Because Chaudhary said not a word has to be changed.
And they didn't.
They didn't.
That was wonderful. And you were also, in a sense, responsible for the doctorate he received, the honorary.
Yes, I was. In some ways, yes, I was, yeah. I talked to the Chancellor, Roy Jenkins, who had been an important minister in the Labour governments, and the chairman of the European Commission.
In that sense, books and authors have played a very special role in your life, and you played a very special role in their life.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, because I met E.M. Foster at a very early age in Cambridge, and through him I got to know all these people. And I have always been interested in literature and history, and I have never been without a book since I was 16 years old. And I have never felt bored, because I have a library of 7,000 books, so I keep very good company.
You mentioned E.M. Foster. Now, you were hardly in your 20s, just starting out in your diplomatic career, and he was already half a century older when you met him for the first time.
His book, Hail of Devi, came out in 1953, so I wrote him a letter saying that, it will be taken as a plea for the princely order, and then he asked me to come and have tea with him, and then we got to know each other very well. He was a great man in many ways, not only a great author, but a great human being. And
also a great friend, because you mentioned in your book that for him, more than anything else, it was friendship that mattered.
That's right, yeah, friendship. I said somewhere, I think, if he had given me an appointment at 5 o'clock, and if the Prime Minister of England rang up, can you come at 5, he would have said no. I have an appointment with a friend of mine. Yeah.
What kind of relationship did you have with him? Because, you were just starting out. He was already at the peak of his career and at the peak of his fame.
Well,
Could you meet as equals?
Well, he was a very comfortable man to be with, and he treated me, as not in any patronizing manner or condescending manner. He thought it was nice Indian fellow to have friends with. That's right, yeah.
And he also introduced you to a lot of the Indian authors who had
Yeah,
emerged.
he told them if I read any of them, and I hadn't. And so then I read some of them. And then when
Ahmad
I came
Ali,
back,
for example.
yeah, no, Ahmad I hadn't. I later read Twilight in Delhi. Then I met him and I got to know him well when I was ambassador to Pakistan.
The other interesting person that you developed a very intriguing relationship with, a wonderful friendship actually, was with Hans Zimmer.
That's right.
And that was also an interesting meeting.
As it was, I mean, in 1956, we were staying in the same hotel, and I didn't know the language, and I sent her a note to say, can you help me order my breakfast, etc., etc. So
And she was at a table across the
that's
room.
right, and she said, okay, I'm Hans Zimmer, I'll do so. Then we became very intimate friends. I mean, there was no, sex was not a part of the friendship, yeah. Although she was an extremely beautiful person, but she's already in love with an Indian, Ratna Swami, who was a colonel in the Indian Army, an engineer who was building the roads in Nepal. And she had gone there for a holiday and met him there. So she died only 2 years ago, at the age of 94. The last time I saw her was 2005.
And she was also the one who, in a sense, introduced you to China, the hidden China, which
Yes,
you
I
probably...
think she did. Yeah, but I mean, I was very new, so she showed me around Peking, which was a very different place then from what it is now. It was an extended village actually. Yeah, but she was a very good guide. And
What is it about her friendship that you cherish the most? How do you remember her?
oh, as a great friend, a great author, very lively person, very affectionate, always helpful, and also slightly mixed up because her nationality, a Chinese father and a Belgian mother. So she had a problem of identity.
Similarly, with Shantaram Rao, now, who was also a known author in America, she was also someone you developed a great friendship with.
Yeah, I have a very fine friendship, and she introduced me to a number of people in America, and then she used to review books for the New York Times and the Saturday Review. So she wrote to the editors of these two introducing me, and so I became a reviewer for the New York Times Book Review and Saturday Review for many years. Yeah.
You'd been reviewing books in India earlier, and this was, not exactly a career, but it went parallel with your diplomatic career. Were there any objections?
No, there were no objections, but I was in the government service, so I had to be a bit careful.
You do mention one incident with Mr. Mathai at that time.
Yeah, I remember that. He was not exactly a person would like to have as a friend. yeah, I mean he's.
And that was the time when Mrs. Hattie Singh, she was very protective, and she
because her two sons were in school with me.
And this was in
it's India School, Gwalior, 1944. Because I was in Mayo College from 39 to 44. Then my father said I should go to a public school, and India was changing. And that's where I met her for 44, and she was always very good to me. And that's why whenever she came to Delhi, I used to go and see her there. And then quite often Indira Gandhi dropped in sometimes, Pandit Nehrus dropped in.
So the introduction to the Nehru Gandhi family really started through Krishna Hattie Singh.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
So you really did know him before you joined the IFS, and you had to meet him officially as the Prime Minister?
No, I was only 15 years old at that time. Yeah. No, but when I joined the IFS, in those days he used to interview the IFS probationers himself. There were 7 of us, and it was quite an occasion. Yep.
What do you remember of Pandit Nehru as the sort of uncle, because he was uncle to your friends, so in that sense avuncular towards you. Do you have any memories of those days?
Oh yes, I had breakfast with him, and when I was on many of the banquets in Raj Bhavan. I used to go there, and then a lot of important delegations came, and I was attached to those delegations, including Khrushchev and Volgarin, Zhou Enlai, the King of Saudi Arabia, Norodom Sihanouk of Cambodia. So one saw a lot of him. But he was a very great man. After all, he is one of the heroes of the freedom movement, second only to Gandhiji.
Absolutely.
And then he spent nearly 10 years in jail. He was a great prime minister. He gave us democracy, secularism, pluralism, humanism. He established the IITs, he built the Bhakra Dam and the steel plants, set up the Atomic Energy Commission, the Planning Commission. So, his contributions were great. He was a great prime minister, but he was not a great foreign minister.
That, in fact, you mentioned in your books. It is so interesting that on the one hand you call yourself a Nehruite, total devotee of Pandit Nehru, his ideology, and yet when you write about him, you are admiring him, admiring the man, the Prime Minister, but yet you don't mince your words when you talk about his failures, his three main failures.
No, one must look at the totality of his life.
Yes.
And if you take a totality, he would get 75 out of 100. Yeah, that's a very high percentage. Yeah.
No, but that also speaks about you as the author and as the person who could dissociate the emotion and the rational to bring it together in the book. Is that how you see yourself, that you don't get flown by emotion?
No,
and you
not,
can?
but he was 40 years older than me, and I had joined the foreign as a young man, but the Nehru print on me still survives.
And that was also the time when Young India was kind of stepping forth, and so this idealism would have launched 1,000 dreams, and in Young India and young people at that time, was that the way you looked at it? Was he your hero because he was talking of a new dream?
The number that he was a hero of the freedom movement. Then his 3 books, they're of very high quality. I remember once I was going to take autographs of them. He said, but they're out of date. And I said, sir, journalism dates, not literature. So he said, where did you get this from? So I just thought of it.
When you were going through all this meeting with Pandit Nehru, interacting with the family in the sense through your friends, and getting to see the world at large through these eyes, did you at that time know that you would be an IFS officer?
Absolutely. A unique experience, absolutely. And I also got to know Mrs. Vijayalakshmi Pandit very well.
Yeah.
And then I got to know her daughter, Rita Pandit, very well.
That also is an interesting anecdote in your book, because on the one hand the two sisters didn't quite get along, and yet when you went and met Vijayalakshmi Pandit, she decided to treat you in the same way as Krishna Hattie Singh did. She also said, call me Masi.
But it needed a great deal of tact,
Right.
to manage this relationship. Yeah.
And that is where I suppose the finely honed diplomatic skills that you had somehow seep through. Although in the book itself you don't talk so much about yourself as you do about the events as they were happening. Why do you do that?
No, I thought this book was full of me. I didn't know that. I thought it is full of me. No, I know my limitations, and I've said so. That I have a number of vices and defects, and sometimes I do things which make me feel ashamed of myself. Yeah.
When you talk about your vices, you also mentioned somewhere that you think you're very defiant. Are you?
Yes, I am.
Through the book, except for the few rebellious moments like when you ran away from Scindia school, are you really defiant?
Yeah, I am, and the best example is Sonia Gandhi.
But that was towards the end, and that
but
wasn't
generally also, I am.
You through
I
your career, did you stand
there
your
are certain
ground?
people certain people put me off, and then I'm not willing to compromise. I had, for example, I had great differences with P.V. Narasimha Rao.
Yeah.
I had great differences with Morarji Desai.
That is true.
It wasn't easy to defy him, but I did, and suffered for it, but it didn't matter.
So you always stood your ground and
Yeah, I did.
stuck to your
I did.
principles, whatever they were.
No, the chapter on Morarji Desai
Mhm.
will say a great deal about him and about me.
Going back to your diplomatic years, you started with a stint in China. What was that like?
Well, it was my first posting, and all foreign service officers have to choose one language apart from English or Hindi. So I had opted for Chinese, and I was the first IFS officer to opt for the most difficult language in the world. And I was then about 25, 26 years old. And I mean, Mao Zedong and Chun Lai and Liu Shaoqi and all these first generation great leaders who had been on the long march, to be able to see them as close quarters was a tremendous experience for a young man to meet them. And then I read a great deal about China when I got there, and also Mao's work. And once I could see, I must have been this distance from Mao at least 25 times.
And was it a daunting experience? Or?
It should have been, but it was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is that? Or were you too young to really think
Yes,
that?
I was, and I was so excited, to be that. And they knew that, I belonged to the Indian embassy, and the security was quite lenient and all that. And I got photographs of him from this distance.
Yeah, some of them are there in the book. Now, similarly, your other big stint was at the UN.
Yeah.
Which was also a very, very important stint that you went for. And this also happened not because it was a choice you made. You were supposed to have gone to London.
That's right, yeah.
What was that incident?
No, I was this private secretary to the Secretary General, R.K. Nehru, and I was posted to London. And Mrs. Pandit turned me down because I was very close to her sister. And so I got tremendous prejudice against Mrs. Pandit till I met her in New York, and she couldn't have been nicer.
But that was much later.
Yeah, much later. But the UN is the best university for diplomats. You have a very large number of them. When I was there, about 110. Now there are 193. But whatever happened in the world, it got to the UN within a few minutes. So you met a lot of people. You saw heads of government, heads of state, foreign ministers, rubbed shoulders with them. So you truly became a sort of international person.
And that somewhere also honed your skills, not only as a diplomat, but probably also honed your skills when you became a politician, didn't it? You were at one time called the troubleshooter for the Congress.
Yeah. No, that was over generous for people, yeah. But Indian politics is not really diplomatic. It is a blood sport.
That's what you mentioned in your book, that it is a blood sport and you have no friends at the top.
That's right.
So do you feel that diplomacy is one thing, having such skills is one thing, but this kind of shove and parry that you have in politics, you were not made for it somewhere?
No, it was totally new to me, all this, yeah. And there was in Jawaharlal Nehru's time, there was different. He was a man of refined character, and he understood diplomacy, he understood politics, he knew how to combine two. But later on, it's not so. It's...
No, but already at that time, one did see all kinds of schemings happening, and it became more intense during Mrs. Gandhi's time, and you did spend a lot of time with her. You were posted with her. How did politics change by the time it came to the new generation?
No, you see, for example, when Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister,
Right.
There's no problem with him, Indira Gandhi had to fight every inch of it till she got rid of the syndicate.
Right.
And because the first 2-3 years were very tough for her. But after the demolition of the syndicate, she came into her own.
So when you came into politics after 30 odd years of being on the fringe of it. You were the witness, and to witness to some of the most important events in history at that time.
Well, I was just fortunate to have worked with Mrs. Gandhi's secretary for 5 years. And I mean, she knew who I was,
Right.
but I was very surprised when I was asked to join the secretariat. And to this day, I don't know who recommended me.
So you know, when you're witnessing this from a distance and being part of politics, was it a huge culture shock for you?
Coming to politics, yes, because in the foreign service you live a very sheltered life and an elitist life. And then I suddenly joined politics, and I mean, chaps would come from my constituency and walk into our bedroom, and you know, and they said, "No, hum to raat ko yahan soyenge." So this was, you know, it took some time to adjust to this. Yeah.
Now you had, you know, you had a very close relationship with Pandit Nehru, with Mrs. Gandhi, and for a very long time even with Sonia Gandhi.
And Rajiv.
And Rajiv Gandhi. And because of the various Machiavellian games that were being played, suddenly from being, you know, almost a mentor, a great friend, a supporter, you became a pariah.
Yeah, I became, because, you know, when the Volcker report came out, I was not in India, I was in Moscow, having talks with President Putin and the Foreign Minister Lavrov. And the report was made public on the 27th, and I was in Frankfurt on the 28th. And
This was 2005.
yeah, and in the morning, our ambassador in New York said the report had come. It mentioned Congress Party and myself and some corporate houses. So I was very disturbed and appalled. And then after some time came an announcement from Delhi that a spokesperson that the Congress is clean, Natwar Singh can look after himself. Now this couldn't have been made without Sonia's approval. And I thought she would have said herself that, you know, I knew him very well, he wouldn't do it. She didn't. So when I came back, I didn't go to see her.
That story is now being played out on various channels, but I just want to ask you, you know, in a different context, the Maharaja of Bharatpur had told your father, tell Natwar not to get involved with these Congress walas.
Yes.
That was obviously in a different context, that was before partition and all. Today when you look back, do you think that was sound advice?
Of course not. They were, you know, they were all under the British.
No, in today's context, in what happened so many years, so many decades later.
No, today it wouldn't happen, just wouldn't happen. You know, they were abolished in 1970 and it was over. And I was then in the in Raji's office, and I was very closely associated with the abolition of the princely order and their privy purse, etc.
When you look back at your life, that is mentioned in this book, you obviously refer to notes and you look at life. It's a very vibrant autobiography which you know, kind of brings alive all the events that happened. But when you look back at these years, how would you, what do you see different? How would you have lived something differently?
Well, you know, people always often ask if I had to live again. Now, I don't believe in rebirth, and neither do I believe in immortality. But sure, all of us make mistakes, and I've made mistakes. Everybody does. Great people make big mistakes, not so great people make small mistakes. But nobody can get away by questioning my honor and integrity.
Absolutely.
Then I react ferociously, absolutely.
On that note, Mr. Natwar Singh, thank you very much for being on our program and sharing your life through this book with us and the various vignettes that are associated with it.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Thank you.
This is The Wrestler's Drum from Panishwarnath Renu. A winter's night, and a moonless one too, cold and dark. The malaria and cholera-ridden village shivered like a frightened child. The twin powers of darkness and silence ruled over the cluster of bedraggled, desolate bamboo huts. darkness and stillness. The dark night shed silent tears. The stillness tried desperately hard to bury the piteous sighs and sobs in its bosom. Stars twinkled in the sky above, but on the earth there was no trace of light. If perchance some sentimental star thought of falling out of the sky to the earth below, its light would disseminate somewhere on the way, and the other stars in the firmament would laugh out loud at its mawkish ineptitude. The frightening howls and cries of jackals occasionally pierced the stillness, as did the intermittent sounds of people vomiting or groaning inside their huts. The now imploring, now high-pitched cries of Hare Ram and He Bhagwan broke out from within. A child somewhere feebly cried out, Ma, Ma, then fell silent. But none of these sounds had any significant impact on the implacable stillness of the night. Dogs have a special instinct for sensing a situation. All day long they would lie atop heaps of rubbish with their tails tucked in and bodies coiled in a tight bundle. But in the dense darkness of the night, they would howl in unison.